Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Andy and Kat in the heat of the summer, in the height of the summer, is what I meant to say. And I think that's what has inspired our chat this morning, the height of the summer. Where are we going to take this, Andy?
Yeah. Well, we were just talking a moment ago about vacation, and I know I haven't really taken a lot of vacations in my career, but I did realize like the benefit of vacations. But we were just talking about the fact, like, especially like for me, I just took a vacation. Well, it was a week away with my daughter and my wife, and I came back and I was still really quite exhausted. And what I realized was that I had not taken a really vacation since Christmas of 2019, really prior to the pandemic. And and so what I realized was that yeah, like I need to start building in more rest time into my schedule.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up because it's not, I mean, often we don't think as ourselves as like an athlete, right? Like when you're training for a sport, and even a lot of athletes have this issue is the building in of rest in their routine, right? Like I've been a fitness instructor for over 20 years, and I will tell you that is an essential part of your routine to have rest, but really, and stretching, right? But so I associate those two together. Nevertheless, people are way more inclined to know to work hard and maybe even to eat right in order to reach their fitness goals. And I would liken our careers to, like, we're sort of the office athlete, like the corporate athlete or the consulting athlete, if you will. And why wouldn't we need to build in rest? We absolutely do.
Hmm.
We as, and especially like as self-employed individuals, like that's really hard to do because you always equate, I mean, we're so ingrained to trading our time for money, and that if you don't work, you don't make the money. And so I've struggled with this myself for a long time, in that I didn't want to ever take, I haven't taken a sick day for like ever, right? Because you don't get paid for sick days as a contractor or a consultant, unless of course you're an employee of another consulting organization. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as a self-employed consultant, you're on your own for everything, really. So it's hard. I totally get it. It's hard to take vacation.
It's- yeah, and I think that there's I think especially like a lot of people when we're sort of workhorses, right? And a lot of people who are in the consulting business, especially if you're in there for any length of time, we like to work, and we typically, right? This is not an easy game. This is not a something where somebody who can just kind of float in
Coast.
and float out. No,
Yeah, you can't really
it's
coast.
no, it's well, it's mentally hard, it's emotionally hard, and if you're traveling, it's physically hard
Yeah, yeah.
to really to do this and do it well. And so, yeah, I think you're right about the athletes, and equating it to an athlete. And it's interesting because a lot of really good athletes, they need to be told shut it down,
Right.
stop. And in fact, where I was with my daughter's only 12, but we were at the USA Track and Field Nationals. That's where we were that week
Amazing.
when we took the time off. And yeah, it was interesting because she did three events while she was there, but when we got home, she wanted to start practicing again, even though it, we she has a club, and she also has a couple private coaches she works with, but she wanted to start practicing immediately, which we really wanted her just to kind of rest because her feet, it's a lot of pounding on her feet, but I mean, she just wanted to get right back and start practicing again. Um, Now she's 12, so the reality is that she's going to be riding her bike, or she's going to be running down the street, or
Sure.
swimming, or doing
Just
something
like
anyway.
she's
So
not
she's
going to
just a
be,
child.
yeah. Yeah.
No, she's not gonna. Yeah,
Rest
but
on
it's
her
still
laurels.
yes, yeah, because she's a kid, right? But when we look at it at an adult, yeah, an adult athlete, they do need to take breaks, and even children need rest. But yes, they need to build in that time to rest and recover. We realize that with their because they're using their bodies, but we're doing exactly the same. So I like
Mm-hmm.
that analogy for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of perspectives that I wanted to discuss about this. The first is the one that we've started to discuss, like mentally, you need a break. And I mean, there's so many books out there that will teach you that the mental downtime, and I mean, you can build this into your daily routine, right? Like through meditation or just being mindful or just letting your brain not think. I know it's super hard to do that, right? Because you can't not do something, whatever it is, right? You got to like think of nothing. And that is when you get into like you get the creative juices flowing, right? By removing all of the distractions or the things that are going on in your life, right? You're basically emptying your cup. So there's
Mm.
that. And the second perspective that I wanted to discuss, and this is something that is, especially if you are a self employed consultant, is that how do you make sure that you have the money to be able to take time off when you need? What is it like? How much of it should you be building into your bill rate, right?
Yeah.
And how should you be taking care of that piece so that if for whatever reason you want to take time off, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like as self-employed consultants, the beauty of being self-employed is that you get full control of your time without having to ask anybody else for permission.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yes, and I think that there's two things in there. Yeah, a lot of consultants, and I've done this myself. You go from project to project, and you're kind of you're running along, and then you realize, if I'm going to take time off, that means I don't get any income. What does that mean to my bank account? Or there's a fear, if I don't find a project, if I take two weeks off or 3 weeks off, or I get some downtime, what happens if I miss an opportunity? What happens if the market changes? Because the market can change at times fairly quickly.
Yep.
So we get into these cycles of really
Make
worrying.
hay, make
Yeah, well,
hay
listen.
while the sun is shining, right?
That's right. Yes, and sometimes we're definitely our own worst enemies. The things that make us good consultants are often the thing that harm us on that end. And so I think you're right. I think building that into our plan, knowing that we're going to take time off. And I do think the other side is building it in, and taking time off during a project. I find that one of the things that's interesting is we don't question employees, right, from the client when they take time off and they take time away. Part of that is also building that in for ourselves, and then that means executing our tasks properly, where we can take that time off. But I don't think we should be. I know, I actually have to take a sip of my own medicine here, because I'm telling people, don't feel bad, for leaving a project and taking some time off, or building that in, or telling the project manager that you want to take a couple of weeks, because I have a hard time doing that. But I'm working on trying to build that in, so that I know, look, I can't just shut down my life for a year and then hope to take a couple of weeks off at the end. It's also not good for us. It's not good for our families. And just getting that emotional break is good.
I would say I suffer from the same. Well, it's not really a suffering. It's just like it's a self-imposed thing, right? Like I do not, again, the whole entire deal of make hay while the sun is shining. I would think that I don't even think I remember the last time I took more than a week off, right? But I'll tell you that, I mean, in the past year, 2022 was a really challenging year for myself and my family, both from a personal level and from a career standpoint as well. Like the project I was on was super challenging and super hard. And I literally, like, I wanted to, wow, I didn't even know, like, day to day whether or not I would make it through to the end. Like, it was that challenging. And then, so what I realized is that sometime in July, so the original go live date was supposed to be July-ish, and then it got pushed a month, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can hang on. And so my husband was like, you need something to look forward to. Like you need to literally have a picture of what that end goal is, like to reward yourself for having gone up to like to make it through, right? And so I chose to, plan a trip to Mexico in November when the project was complete, right? And it so happened that the go live was whatever. Anyways, that aside. So I had this picture on my wall in front of my monitor or right beside my monitor, and every day I would look at it, and it honestly, like, it helped me get through to, I mean, it was still hard, the tasks didn't change, but my mindset saw that there was a tunnel and there was a light, literally a
Mhm.
light at the end of the tunnel. And said that helped me get through. And so I'll tell you, by the time November came around and we are actually in Mexico, I remember just lying in the pool on a float thing. And I was like, oh, just like, I was just looking at a palm tree and the blue sky that's behind it, and I just thought, wow, like I just mentally melted into that floaty lounger thing. Like, this was worth it. It just made it so, so sweet.
Yeah. Well, yes, and I like how you built that out, because that's, I think, one of the, and actually, and you're really good, and that's one thing I think Kat, anybody who's listened to previous episode, I think Kat is really good about. I mean, she was actually the one that introduced vision boards to me and things like that. But I think you're really good at actually having those mental pictures, and also having like tangible pictures, because you do a good job of actually printing things off or cutting things out and saying, this is what I'm aiming towards. And so I do think that that's a really good approach, especially once we start to kind of feel stuck in the mud, because I think the one tough thing with the types of projects that we're on is most of us are used to some sort of like cycle where we play a sport, and that sport is 12 weeks, and then there's a beginning and an end, and we play another sport or another activity, or we've got a school year and we've got these breaks that are built in. And then when we work, we have these sometimes long projects that could last a year or more. Sometimes we roll into the next set of problems or the next project, and we don't get these breaks where we go, okay, it's just really a set of problems every day. And having what you just said, having some image of saying, okay, this is what I get
You're
at the
working
end.
towards.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right. Yes, yes. And we do it with children, right? We give them rewards,
Mm-hmm.
and we
Mm-hmm.
give pets rewards. We need to do the same for ourselves.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, when we talk about vision, but I feel like vision boards have gotten sort of a bad rap in the last number of years. Like, uh, people make fun of vision boards. Oh, you're gonna put your on your vision board. But I will tell you that they actually work. They okay, so case in point, this particular Mexico trip, the I had an exact picture of my room. I just, like, I literally looked it up on Google. Had it an exact picture of what I wanted the beach to look like, from the view from my room to look like, where exactly the palm trees were. Like, it was that exact. And when I looked at it, whatever ever after perhaps a meeting or something, I would just like take a few moments, not even a minute, even just like a few seconds, to look at that picture and just kind of like visualize and feel what it feels like to be in that room. And I would literally feel a buzz in my tummy or in my diaphragm, wherever it is, um, solar plexus.
Yeah.
And when we got to Mexico, we didn't actually have that room right off the bat. I had asked to, well, no, let's okay, take a step back. So we were getting our rooms, and I wasn't convinced that the room that they gave us was that particular room, because I wanted that room. Like,
Mhm.
let's be clear. And so I was like, well, can I have this one? This, no, 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 it's all full. But then when we walked into the room itself, it was, Andy, it was that exact
Yeah.
room. Isn't
Yeah.
that hilarious? Like,
It is.
I
Yeah.
tried, I tried to get that room with my own, like, oh, please give us this particular area in this particular building, because I thought where it was. Nope, the universe had
Yeah.
already set it aside for me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And you were fighting the universe, right? Going,
Yeah,
no,
I
no,
was,
I got to do something else, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the universe going, hold on
No,
here.
no, you already have it.
Yeah. 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 Well, and and you're right about people think it's sort of hokey, but we do it naturally because we did it when we were children. When we were a child, we found pictures of things. And I don't know if kids still do it today. I know my daughter does it. Like she prints stuff out or she hangs stuff up in her room. But when we were kids, that's what we would get the catalogs, right? The
Yeah,
Christmas catalog would come
yeah.
and you go through and
And
you'd
map
look at
out
all.
everything you want.
That's right. Yes. And there were things like, the easy bake oven that I never got,
Right.
but it was like, but I knew people who did, and it was funny, but all these different things that you see, but we would build that out now. Uh, but we do it even as an adult, right? Like when we drive by and somebody wants a particular car, right? They drive by, they look at the car, they sometimes drive by on a Sunday. It's sort of like this, I'm going to inch by or I'm going to drive by and take a peek because I don't want to really commit myself to it just in case it doesn't work out, or I don't want to embarrass myself. But really we just need to say, look, that's what I want. That's what I'm going to work towards. And yeah, there is no shame in cutting that out and aiming towards that. In fact, we're built for that. Like actually, we are pre-designed for that. God, universe, the creator, whatever we want to believe in, that we were pre-built to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I 100% believe in that. And if somebody says they don't believe in it, then that's fine. You're right too, because it won't work if you don't believe in it. But I do believe that it's something that we have to kind of have that vision, and actually be able to see that ahead of time.
100%. 100%. When you take a look at any, like Walt Disney as an example, you know, you think that all of those parks and all of those movies just happened on their own just because no, he had the vision in his head first and then all of the pieces came together, right? Like it's it's crazy how we think it's so detached. Like to have that vision in your head is so detached when you actually like what you need to do to actually get it. It's no, it's all one, it's all part of one journey,
Yes,
right?
that's right. Yes, yeah, and I think one of the challenges with that when we talk about rest, and let's not even talk about vacation, because we vacation is something that is, of course, one type of rest, but we can get rest in different ways. Vacation being one of them. We talk
Hmm.
about rest, however we choose to get our rest. Vacation being an important one. It's really looking at things that inspire us and trying to look search for that. This is one reason why most of us don't get rest when we're really exhausted, because we're too tired to do something that inspires us often, or we haven't built in the habits to do it. So we turn the TV on, right?
Mm,
We
yes.
we scroll through the internet or Instagram,
Yeah.
or we sit idly, or we fight with people, because that's the other thing too. I think a lot of conflict that we face is really out of exhaustion, where people are exhausted, they need a boost. And for people who don't believe this, watch your children. When they get tired, they're going to ramp it up, and they ramp it up
Yeah.
because they don't want to be tired, right? And so they get in, and that's just a mechanism they've learned. And but adults do it too. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of counterproductive things that we use when we're tired, when we're exhausted or fatigued, that doesn't serve us. In fact, it sets us back. And so we have to find things that inspire us, be it even if it's reading, working out, cooking, eating right, things that really, meditating. Some people, I mean, traditionally it was going to church. There were a lot of things that people used to do, gardening. There's a lot of things people do that sometimes seems like a waste of time, but it actually it's a builder. It's something that feeds
Hmm.
them
It's a
back energy.
recharger. Hmm.
That's right. Yes. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I remember actually, I don't know if I told you this, Andy, but there was I think I began at about the end of February and I took it for a number of months. It's called tricking. So like parkour, you know what parkour is, right? The
Yes.
acrobatic component to parkour is called tricking. And so essentially you literally learn how to do, front flips and back flips and side flips and all these aerial kicks. And I mean, it's really cool. Generally, it's children who take it, right?
Yeah.
And I am not like almost perimenopausal women. um, but there was one day I wanted breakthrough, and so I asked the universe for breakthrough. And are you sure I didn't tell you? I feel like I told you this. No, okay.
Oh,
So yeah, so I asked the universe for
I
breakthrough. Hmm?
yeah, I do know. Oh, yes, you had started it. It was
Mentioned.
probably yes, yeah, you had
Oh,
just
okay. Yes.
started it. Yes, because I think you said that Zane was doing it, and then you went.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
So yeah, so I took Zane to this his class because he takes it, and for whatever reason that evening I felt compelled to just take a trial class. Like, why not, right? And so I did. And oh my gosh, like this is the thing about starting a new sport when you're this age, is that at the end of every class we spun, like we had to do front rolls, like somersaults for like 15 meters, which is, I don't know, like 20 yards or whatever, there and back, like
Yeah.
20 yards there, 20 yards back. And at the end of every class, I literally needed a gravel because I was so dizzy and so nauseous. But in any case, what I realized is that 1 hour class was, so I had to focus on everything I was doing in that one class so that I wouldn't hurt myself, because we're learning to flip. Like, you're literally learning to do a front flip. And so it allowed me to forget everything else that was going on in my life. Like, I had to focus on just what is there. And at the end of the class, I'll tell you, it was it was so effective in terms of, like, I felt recharged. I tired, like
Yeah.
physically, so tired, fatigued, but mentally recharged.
Yes, yeah, I like that. And for people who haven't seen Kat, because I know we have some the YouTube videos out there, some recordings of our podcast, but Kat's in great shape because she's a fitness instructor, but she's in great shape. So when she says, like, when she describes this, she's someone who actually can pick up a new sport at this age. But and then that's not to tell anybody that anybody else can't. But Kat, I think, is underestimating her ability to
Oh,
to
begin
pick
where
up
you
these
are,
sports.
right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yes. Well, well, yeah, and I think that one of the things I always think about with that sort of stuff is I always think about burning off what I always call like sour gases. If you think of like anybody who's been in the oil industry, or you drive by like oil, like gas plants or oil plants, you see that little flare that's burning on top of a stack, and it's burning off sour gases
Oh,
that
I
don't
didn't know
have
that.
any, yeah, so they don't have any purpose, or they will sort of damage they've separated out, and they're burning that off. And I think human beings have, like, not literally sour gases, but we have
Or
that
some
where
of them
we
do.
we do, yes. But we have to burn that off too, right? We have, again, a very hard emotional day, and we've separated out the energy, right? And we're carrying this sort of, I don't want to say bad energy, but this energy that now we have to get rid of, that causes fatigue. And so we have to find these methods of doing that. And for some people, it may be one thing, and others it's another. I do know, and so doing that, we become physically tired, which makes us sleep better, but also usually gets us hungry. And as long as we're consuming the right food and water, or the right nutrients at least, then we are improving. I think if we search and we go, okay, I'm feeling really crappy, I'll go have a cigarette, 3 beers, and a bunch of chicken wings. It's probably not the right thing to do. We're really setting ourselves back. Those things are good to do sometimes, but not as a replacement for, or to try to overcome fatigue that we're feeling.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Okay, so let's switch to the other perspective, in terms of building in enough, essentially, money to ensure that you could take time off when you want to.
Yeah, think that one of the things that we often do as consultants, and I think one of our early podcasts was around trying to come up with your proper
Burn
rate.
rate,
Yeah,
yes, your floor
yes,
rate. Yep.
yes, yeah. And one of the things that we often do as independent consultants, or even just consultants in general, and this can go for really anybody who's really billing on a somewhat an hourly basis. We'll take the hours and we'll say, I my billable rate is X, and then they multiply that into 2,000 working hours in the year, or 2080 or 2040, and then they go, okay, that's how much I can make in a 52-week year. Um, but one of the things we need to do is, I always think of like companies, when companies pay, and let's just use round numbers to make it simple. If somebody's an employee of a company, they're making 52,000 a year. Somebody will say, well, they get paid 52,000 for 52 weeks of work. Well, they really don't, because they get 52,000, but they get 2 weeks of vacation. So they really $52,000. They get paid over that 12-month period, but they also get the 2 weeks of vacation. They also may get 3 or 4 sick days. They also might get 5 stat days that they
Mm-hmm.
get off.
Mm-hmm.
So the company has built that into their framework. They know that they don't get use of that employee for the full
Mm-hmm.
52 weeks. They get use of that employee for maybe 47, right?
Yep.
And so the company has built that into the program. They have to pay them over 52, but they only get the benefit of them for the 47. I think we have to do that too when we look at ourselves. We have to say, look, I'm going to be sick. And if I'm sick, I have to build that into my budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or I'm going to have to leave work early to pick the kids up, or uh, there's going to be a tragedy in the family that I have to take some time off. I can't rely on the fact that I'm going to work a full 52 weeks a year at 40 hours, or people even saying, well, I know I can get extra hours, so it'd be 45 hours a week. Well, if you've worked 45 or 50 hours a week consistently over years,
Yeah,
it is
that's
going to,
hard.
yes, it's going to really, really, really hurt you, because you can't do it takes away from that recovery time. So I think
No,
that's one thing, is
exactly.
to build that in. So sorry, go
Mm-hmm.
ahead. Yeah.
No, no, I wasn't. No, actually, you've hit it right on the mark. Like the to calculate your hourly bill rate, you have to take into all of those things, including even the severance. I don't know if you talked about the severance that, like, when you work for a company, they probably build in the severance pay that they have to pay you if they, can you, right?
Yes.
Or that's probably the wrong word to use. Anyways, whatever.
It's the same, right? It's
Um,
reality.
Right. So then
Yeah.
in factoring all of these things, you come up with your floor rate and you kind of like then compare that to what the market will bear at that point in time. But at least when you've done that calculation, right? So what you need to live on, taking sick time, what happens if you don't work for a period of time between contracts, right?
Yeah.
When you take vacation, all of those things need to be factored in order to get to your floor rate. And if you don't know what a floor rate is, it's the absolute minimum you need to charge somebody in order to continue living at your level of lifestyle, right? And I really like how you brought in the fact that you shouldn't be expecting to be working 40 hours a week for 52. I mean, not even employees do that, but really your calculations, I always say your calculations should be on 10 months out of the year, right? So be it if you want to take a couple weeks off, plus if you have, you're in between contracts, or if you have some sick time. I think that a good rule of thumb is to base your calculations on 10 out of 12 months being employed at probably 8 hours a day. I think is a good ballpark. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that for sure. That's a good, definitely a good way to plan it. And that keeps our feet to the fire. I think one of the dangers as a consultant, I know this gets away from maybe talking about rest and relaxation, but I guess it kind of leads into it, is the fact that when we look and we see what we can earn, we get pretty excited, right? Wow, I'm going to make that. I was making only a fraction of that, before I went and became a consultant. We have to take care of our own taxes, your own medical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've got to pay, for an accountant. You might have to pay for an incorporation. You may have to pay for errors and emissions insurance. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that you have to
Yep.
pay for. Now, that doesn't, that's not to scare anybody away from doing, because I do believe it's a great thing to do. But we have to make sure that we don't just go hog wild crazy, going, now I can buy all the things I
Yeah.
I wanted to
Yeah.
because I
The
got this cash.
worst. Yeah. 100%. The worst thing that you can possibly do is not set aside money for all of those things that you need, like for taxes and everything,
Mm.
because I will tell you, you will be in trouble for years to come to try to have to catch up with especially setting aside for taxes. Oh yeah. Like
Yep.
that's the number one thing that you
Yes.
need to, and if you can probably pay it ahead of
In
time,
advance. Yes.
it's probably in your best interest
Yes.
because worst case scenario, if you pay it too much ahead of time, you're going to get that money back,
Yep.
right, at the end of the year. And I know, we're giving the government an interest-free loan, but it beats having to actually come up with a
Yep.
bunch of money because you spent too much, right,
Yes.
and not had enough money to pay for taxes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
So we kind of detracted from the vacation, but I think that hopefully you guys got some really good nuggets out of this one, like both in terms of setting aside time, the mental mindset that you should be taking as a self-employed consultant, the balance between taking time off and working while the hay is shining, or
Yeah.
making hay while the sun's shining. The hay doesn't shine,
Yes.
or it could. And then from a quantitative perspective, what like the strategies that you need to employ in order to ensure that you have enough money set aside to do the things that you need to do for the whole entire year, right? Like
Hmm.
taking sick
Yes.
leave or taking time off and taxes
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so anything else to add, Andy?
One thing I would do, and this is I don't know about um females. I can only talk about the males because I kind of, is that often men, and I'm assuming women would have this too, is you need to spend some time finding other things that you enjoy doing. And I think you're really good at that. Like your cat is really good at um taking on new activities or learning new things that is away from consulting. And I think that we need to do that. We can't all be all work. I think we need to find things that we really enjoy, and those things need to be productive things. That it needs to be something that, again, if it's you know uh, if it, again if it's going out every 2 weeks and drinking beer, it might be okay. But if you have 9 of them, again, you're setting yourself back. We need to do things that are productive, and finding that. I think I don't care if somebody's in consulting
Love
or other.
how, yeah, I love, sorry, you just paused there, so I thought you were
Oh yeah,
done.
oh yeah, it's okay.
No, 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 I didn't. I
Oh,
apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. But like
no, it's okay.
yeah, I love how you brought that up. And that could be, oh man, I can speak so much on this. It's like for growth mindset, right? Like not even for like emptying your mind or de-stressing, but for growth mindset. Because the fact of the matter is, your brain cells, it's a complete myth that you were born with a set number of brain cells, and after a certain period of time, you don't grow anymore. That is an absolute lie. It's not at all true. The fact of the matter is you can always grow new synapses in your mind, and try, and the way to do that is to try new stuff.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's I find and I really feel bad for people when I mean you hear those horror stories quite frequently where someone works till they're 65, they retire, and then they pass away 2 years
And they
later.
drop
Or
dead. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
and they're stumbling around the house, they've got nothing to do, and they have no friends, they have no interests. The kids are all grown, and they don't want to travel. They're all of the things that come. And it's really important that we build in things that we enjoy doing and things that we can participate in, rather than just being, let's say, a viewer or you know, uh, yeah, just somebody who's watching, something that we can participate in some way. So I really think that that's an important thing to build in early, and try to kind of build that out. And the reason why I brought it up for men was because I often see where men just dig into work. They just go,
Really?
It's work, work, work." Yeah, I think it's kind of our safe place where, and I know women. can do it too, but I just see that especially as I get older, I start to see very unhealthy behaviors from a lot of men where they're not involved with the kids' school, they're not involved with walking the dog. Like there's a lot of things that they just kind of all of a sudden just start handing off to their partner or their spouse, and then they just bury themselves into work, or that their only avenue is their favorite sports team. It's really important to build that in, and I don't mean to be sexist and say it's just men, because I'm sure women do it too. I just see it so much from men where they just not every man, but a lot, and it's and for women who do it, it's the same. Like find activities that you can do, that you can be engaged in, that you enjoy, that's away from the stress and of consulting.
I love. So we need to do a whole entire episode on this because I have so much to contribute.
Like that.
Let's continue this topic for our next episode. Because I got some good guys.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Lots
to
share on this.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'll say that that Kat is actually really good at, because like frequently, if you go back through the episodes over the years that we've done, you'll hear Kat's trying something new, and I think it actually is a really good inspiration for people who want to just try something, and so yeah. Anyways, but I think it's a great topic.
Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I'm always envious when I see pictures of what your family's cooking for dinner and stuff like that. I'm always very jealous. Well, my wife's actually becoming a really good cook, so I'm treated very well too. But I'm always very jealous of this different stuff that you guys cook. So